Why God is not omnibenevolent. Evil is not the opposite of good. The relationship of evil to good is rather like the relationship of cold to hot. There is no such thing as coldness per se. There is, though, in some sense, a lack of heat. But a lack of something is not a positive thing. When we speak of coldness, what we really mean then is that there is a lack of heatness. In the same way, evil is a privation of the good, a lack of the good, if you will. But evil is more than a mere illusion. There really is evil in the world. Anyone who has experienced evil for themselves, and that just is everyone, all such people know that evil is real. But evil is not a positive reality. It is a parasite on the good. And a parasite cannot exist on its own. Luke Skywalker was right when he told his father he knew there was some good left in him. If there were no good left in Darth Vader, he would have ceased to exist. There is an account in the Gospels where Jesus is referred to by someone as a good teacher. Jesus responds by saying, quote, "Why do you call me good? There is none good but God alone," unquote. Now, some have misunderstood this passage to be a denial on the part of Jesus, a denial of his divinity. But I'll leave that question aside for now. It is a misunderstanding, though, I will say. The reason I mention the passage is to illustrate the fact that only God is good. As Jesus himself explicitly said, none is good but God alone. But if only God is good, does that mean that humans are never good? Christian orthodoxy has always maintained that while human beings do at times act virtuously, we are never virtuous. That is, our nature is totally depraved. Our sin nature is not virtuous, though we sometimes do act virtuously. Again, since we are not perfect, we are not totally good. God, on the other hand, is perfect, and thus he is totally good, or none is good but God alone, as Christ said. Now, there is within philosophy a long tradition of offering arguments for the existence of God. There is a simultaneous tradition of offering arguments against the existence of God. The case for atheism normally focuses on what has come to be called the problem of evil. The argument may be briefly stated by saying that the following two propositions are logically inconsistent. First proposition, God is by definition omnipotent, omniscient, and good. Second proposition, there is evil in the world. The conclusion we are to draw from this putative inconsistency the conclusion we are to draw from this inconsistency, says the atheist, is that there cannot be a God. I do not find the argument from evil as a whole to be sound or compelling. Even atheists now admit the argument to be a non sequitur. I mean, most all atheists who keep up with the latest developments in solid Christian philosophy of religion agree the argument in this particular form does not work, and either they no longer use the argument or they have reformulated it. But the reason for the failure of the traditional argument are not what I wanted to address in this video. What I wanted to address was instead a disturbing development in recent discussions of the problem of evil. I do not think the reformulated arguments are successful in proving atheism, and of course it is perfectly legitimate to reformulate an argument if the original form is unsuccessful. So that's not what the problem is. Rather, what I take issue with is changing the word good in the argument from evil to the word omnibenevolent. It may seem to you I'm being anal here by finding this change of terminology so deeply troubling, but I feel my apprehension is not theological hair splitting. The big Indians versus the little Indians. I feel my concern is legitimate here, but I must add before continuing that even Christian apologists have started using this new language of omnibenevolence. I think I even heard Bill Craig speak of God as omnibenevolent. I was shocked when I heard this. I greatly respect Dr. Craig and have benefited greatly from his teachings over the years. I find myself agreeing with most, though not all, of his teachings. But I also don't think that we should make too much of him saying, quote, God is omnibenevolent, unquote. Still, it is legitimate to point out that he was less precise here than he should have been, than he normally is when he is talking about God. He's normally more precise in talking about God. So I just wanted to point that out, that he was being perhaps not teaching something that's false, but just not being as clear as he could have been when he said that. What is the problem with saying that God is omnibenevolent? Don't Christians traditionally affirm this? Well, as I said at the beginning of this video, God is good. Moreover, only God is good. But it is false to speak of levels of goodness. Hitler is not very good, but Mother Teresa does a better job. Maybe the angels are even better, and finally God is most good. No, there is goodness and there is lack of goodness, or evil. There is no such thing as being partially good. That which is not absolutely good is not good at all. Again, I am not saying humans never do good things. We clearly do commit virtuous acts, but we are not ourselves good per se on Christian theology. At the same time, however, we do have a tremendous amount of value as human beings. So if that's what you mean by humans are good, then yes, humans are good, because we have a value as being created in the image of God, and so much value, in fact, that Christ died for us. Okay, let's see, lost my place here. Okay, let's come at what I'm trying to say from another angle. Some theologians over the years have categorized God's attributes into different categories. Some theologians have spoken of certain divine attributes as communicable and other attributes as incommunicable. Is God's goodness a communicable attribute? In other words, can God communicate his goodness to us? Can someone other than God be good? The answer to this question is no. Even if Adam never ate the forbidden fruit and nobody after him ever sinned, mankind would not be impeccable like God. Man would have the ability to sin even if he never actually sinned. But God absolutely cannot sin. That is what impeccability means. Only God can be good in this sense. There is no creature which is both moral and at the same time impeccable. And there is only one uncreated being, God, and he, as I've already asserted, is impeccable. To truly qualify as good, then, one must not only be totally free of all sin, but, in addition, one must be incapable of sinning in the first place. It does no good to say that good is communicable to us only in a very limited and somewhat analogical way, for all God's attributes are like that. We are not all-powerful, for example, but we do have a limited power similar to God's power, but power is not used univocally of God and man. The incommunicable distinction seems to create more problems than it solves, I mean to say. And I'll conclude this topic in the next video. Thank you.